Welcome to Tell Me More, an Allsteel podcast where design meets innovation and we explore the limitless potential of the modern workplace.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Tell Me More podcast. Today, we're finishing out the third of our three-part series on the rhythm of change. I'm Andrea Gauss here with Allsteel, and I have with me Dave Kutsunai. Dave, tell us a little bit about your role within IA, how long you've been with the industry, whatever else you want to share with us.
Yeah, I've been in the industry for 40 years-ish, long
You've
time.
seen a lot of change.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of change, caused some change myself, good and not so good. But yeah, I'm the co-managing director of the IA Interior Architects Seattle studio and have been with IA for 24 years now, just made 24 years, and have been focusing mostly on workplace.
Fantastic. And we've spent some time together over the years, and I just appreciate your thought leadership, your thought partnership along the way, and I'm excited to dig in right now. So we talked recently, and you made a pretty provocative statement. You said something along the lines of, right now, the typical office is made up of about 75% open, 25% closed. And you were saying that you think it's about to flip. And the reason for this flip is really AI and our change of our personal rhythms and the workflows of the space. So this change we're seeing obviously is constant. Everything's are always shifting. And how should the space around us respond? And I think that's the core thing we're wanting to dig into a little bit today and to push into this. So we're going to start maybe in a weird spot and talk about agility. And I've heard you say now that sustainability is a core thing that I know you're passionate about. I'm passionate about. Circularity is a conversation we've been seeing and having with our clients for many years. But now you're saying maybe we can actually get there because agility becomes the business case for that. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Right. So we're all in the industry, no matter where we are in the supply chain, experience change happening to our customers or our clients, and the pace of change has accelerated exponentially over the last few years. So we can all remember a time not that long ago when our clients could sign like a 10-year lease, live in it for 10 years, buy all the stuff to put in it, build it out. And it would be good for most of those 10 years before they have to start looking for a new place. We can't today even get through a design phase approval without changes happening. It's like, really, you just approved it and you're making changes? Really, we're in construction and you're making changes? Really, the stuff's on the truck and it's on its way and you're making changes, right? And so it's how do we, those of us who deal with physical space and delivering that, how do we accommodate that rate of change that's happening? And so we've seen workplace strategy evolve over the years. We've all been a part of different parts and pieces of that. In a separate lane, we've seen sustainability efforts evolve as well and advance. But it's always been in separate lanes, and we try to force them together. But sustainability has always been a hard sell because it's a secondary application to a primary driver. Primary driver is the business case. We have a workplace strategy developed. We have a design solution for it. And then secondarily, we often ask, okay, now how do we make it sustainable? Do we have time?
Yes.
Do we have budget? Do we care? We're supposed to care. Are there initiatives? All of those things that we all
What
have
am I
been
being
going
held
through.
accountable? What am I being held accountable for as part of this project, right? I think is a big piece of that. Yep.
But it's always been tough because it's a secondary application, it's an add-on to a primary solution. Well, through now circularity with the advancement of certain technologies, manufacturing situations, more creative procurement strategies being discussed, all of these things start to play into circular economy. And that's been around and have been discussed for a couple of decades now. But we haven't really been, we haven't been motivated enough, haven't found the right path, haven't had the technology advancement to get us there. But now we do. So all of these solutions like 3D printing of products, deconstructible construction, flexible architecture, more furniture, adaptable solutions. All of these things play into the circular economy. So circular solutions now is the sustainable answer, which I don't think this has ever happened, at least in my career, where the sustainable solution through circularity is now the primary answer for the primary driver, which is the business need for agility.
That's right.
And so
speed of change.
Speed of change. And Everyone we talk to, I go to forums, listen to panels, look at surveys, research, all of that stuff. Everybody's saying speed, 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 right? We need
Big element.
speed to accommodate change, whether you're doing big buildings or you're doing a TI space and everything in between. And so that's the need for agility. And we are now selling circular, more sustainable solutions without even saying the C word or the S word. We are responding to solve for agility. And oh, by the way, these are circular solutions.
That's right. So we'll dig into this a lot more throughout our conversation, but I want to talk to this idea a little bit about flexible zones versus a little bit more static zones and how you're thinking about agility, which obviously we could define agility in 1,000 different ways, but agility is supporting the business change is I think really what we're talking about, and then having the space that can adapt alongside that agility. So you have this concept of high flex zones. Walk me through your thought there. What are you thinking about for those spaces?
Yeah, every organization is a little bit different, but they are now in tune with what areas of their work environments have been stressed for change and put into shifting accommodations because the users are saying, we now need this, now we need that. Technology has changed. We have to reconfigure this, etc. And so identifying for each organization where those hot points are, those flex zones, can start to more effectively and efficiently direct where the funding goes and where the design special attention goes to accommodate that kind of agility. So it's not we need agility everywhere and when we have to pay that premium. That's not the case. You can kind of zero in on where those areas are and then fine-tune design solutions to accommodate for change. There's always conversations around and a lot of times the words get mixed because they kind of mean the same, adaptability and flexibility.
Yes.
In our minds, flexibility is what you put into the design solution. It's the proactive effort to create this flexibility.
Okay.
Adaptability is when the space or people, whatever is in that system, can shift to accommodate a new ask, a new need, a new force on that individual or groups of people. And so if you design in proactively for flexibility, that can lead to adaptability as a reaction to unknown forces.
By
so that's
the
in our mind, yeah.
No,
Right.
I think that's a great distinction because it's not just the furniture then in the adaptation part. It's a culture that allows for that change. It's a policy that says I can manipulate this space to have it serve my purposes. So I think that's a specific nuance that's really important there. And we know that change, you mentioned it used to happen maybe more on a 10-year cycle. Now it doesn't even get you through a design process. And I like to really tighten it back to there is change in the business leadership, management, philosophy, strategy, but then there's also significant change at the individual level. And I think that is the thing that is speeding this up so quickly is that our individual workflows are rapidly shifting and changing here, more so maybe in the past. Talk a little bit about the handoff, because I think that is something that's unique in our industry. Sometimes we're really, really lucky to have a client that we build out their space and they keep us around. But a lot of times we hand off occupancy to the facilities team, to the human resources team, and we walk away and they have to have the ownership then to adapt and change. Are you seeing that shift a little bit more? Do you think clients are having you stick around longer, or are you building in different things into the process to help with that adaptation?
I think the whole industry used to deliver space for the end user. We call them the end user because at the end of our process, design, build, fit out, they move in. Okay. Then now the user moves in at the end of our process.
Interesting.
The mind shift now is that the end user should be thought of as really the beginning user. So day one when they move in is the first day that space has to start performing for their business. And we used to kind of in this, when pace was slow, the 10-year lease, we could dust our hands off after they move in day one and kind of walk away, right? Now, and we would expect change. We accommodated the new things that they needed and they can live in that space. Well, that's not the case now. Change doesn't stop the day they move in. change continues to happen to them. And so the physical space, if it's going to keep performing for them after day one, how do we design that physical space to be able to do that? And that means there's an opportunity for all of us to stay engaged with that client after day one. Day one is just day one. Right? Their business change will continue, and they will need more or less of our help, depending on how robust, their internal support system is. But it's an opportunity to stay engaged with that client on an ongoing basis.
Which means everything about the process, that mind shift to maybe there's a part of the budget that gets maintained for post-occupancy, or there needs to be, right? And that this is a long-term relationship, not just a period of time project-based relationship. That's super important. You said something in our last.
Sorry, I want to mention this. This also kind of expands into kind of the financial strategy here, because a day one moment and the process to deliver for that is a CapEx expense, but an ongoing, agile space that keeps shifting and accommodating change into the future is now an OpEx expense.
Yes.
And so that has given organizations some flexibility on how they look at the financing strategy as well.
Really interesting. Yeah. There's always the finance guy at the end of the decision, right? It's always part of it. You got to get there. All right. Just to pivot for a second here, you said something in our last conversation that I've been thinking about. I was on a flight for a long time yesterday, and I just kept noodling over this idea that you don't want spaces to look like a furniture showroom. And sometimes when you think about flexibility and agility, our mind immediately goes to everything's on casters or something like that. So say more about placemaking, the setting that you're creating, and how agility is a part of that, but you can take it maybe too far.
Yeah. So in everything we do, pendulum keeps swinging back and forth, and we try to find, we went too far this way or too far that way. And this is kind of similar. So in the effort to create more agile space, because our clients are going through all this change, we've gotten pretty good at delivering those solutions. And we've seen that in the last probably 5 years, less permanent build out, more furniture solutions and solutions that can move and adapt, screen walls that can slide or go up and come down, demountable partitions. All of these things provide that flexibility. What has happened is, in a lot of cases, not in all, but a lot of cases, what we're seeing is pendulum swinging too far where the spaces start looking like furniture showrooms. And that's not a knock against furniture showrooms, because they have to look adaptable because their products are always changing and they are not really appealing to any brand. They're a universal kind of approach because you're trying to appeal to a lot of different brands out there.
Sure.
And customers. But for an organization who does have a culture, that does have a brand, and you start to play too much too agile, the space starts to look too temporary. And what gets lost is the soul. And when we say space plus spirit equals place.
Okay.
So we walk through and go through a lot of spaces every day, and they don't mean anything to us. They're not memorable. They're nothing special. And you can deliver a functional space, but it's not a place. It's just a space.
And the place is pull, right? Pulls you in. You want to stay.
Right.
Yes.
This is where the value of designers come in. Can bring their magic and sprinkle the magic dust. And hopefully what happens is it brings spirit to space. And when that happens, now you have a place. Place is meaningful. Place is memorable. It's someplace we want to go back to. It has a draw. It has a lasting life beyond just the visit, because people now share it out and talk about it. It's hard to know when you see it, but we all know it when we feel it. When we walk into a chapel or into a stadium, could be a casino, could be a spa. I mean, all of these things, when you walk into it, you feel something, and that's the spirit. That's the soul of the place. So when we talk about agile fit outs, where is the soul coming from? If everything is so temporary, where's the architecture that can be a mechanism to bring that soul into placemaking? And a lot of that is lost now. So in our own design of our own office, we put that challenge to our own design team. How do you do that? And so they came up with a really cool kind of colonnade. We call it the boulevard. It's long, full block long space with a wood soffit above, and it creates these eddies of activities. But it creates this really powerful statement in the space. And that's the permanent part that brings the soul. But everything under it And everything adjacent to it is adaptable, flexible, can be switched out in a moment's notice.
Because that is exactly the tension. Because we're saying we need spaces that can adapt. We need them to be agile. And yet we want people to feel attached, for culture to be present. So it feels like these are at tension, but you guys have had major success in your physical studio there in Seattle. So talk a little bit more about, because I know you were really thoughtful on circular design incorporation into your studio and thinking through how do we build it like a built environment, built-in feeling, more permanent feeling, and yet know that it's going to need to change.
Yeah. And so there was a period when design was more about the function or efficiency. How many people can we get in the space? Are we accommodating the program? Does it meet our standards and guidelines? We now know space and placemaking is way more than that. Our customers have become very sophisticated. We've helped them understand all of these different facets of placemaking, and they, whether it's agile accommodation for changing technology embedment into the environment, or health and wellness initiatives, or we helped educate them on what DEI stood for. And then for a moment, they said, no, we don't want DEI. And then they realized, yes, we should have DEI, but can we call it something else? I mean, these are all the different factors, more stringent sustainability measures. All of that starts to fuel, inclusive environments is another one. So how do you design for all these kinds of people that are really coming from all over the world? The workforce now is made up of people from all over the world.
Yes.
It's not just people from that place anymore. So it becomes super complex, and it's a challenge for designers to understand all of the different facets. But if you can be conscious of what those are and focus on designing for each of those things, and when you can solve for as many of those things as possible, the collection of all of those solutions become a super rich environment that is not like any other we've done before. We run 2 to 3 tours through our office now, and when people walk in, we actually see jaws drop. The whole phrase, jaw dropping.
That's gotta feel
we
good.
actually see that happen because it's an office that doesn't look like an office. We don't know what it looks like, actually. We have seen workplace evolve in the last few years to actually borrow aesthetics from other genres, make it more residential, make it more hospitality, make it like a food and beverage place, make it entertainment, right? Make it education. We've done that to not have office look like the office of old. But what we've done is built it around aesthetics that we just kind of borrowed from other genres. The attempt here was to try not to do that and really design what we think biologically people need in an environment. Workplace-wise, what do we need? As a business, what do we need? And so can that start to define and poke at a new workplace aesthetic, a new office aesthetic that can be its own thing, not look like something else?
Smart. You were talking about every manifestation for a client is nuanced and layered. And I know you thought through some sensorial layers as well in your space. Sound, scent. Who knows office had a smell? What does your office smell like, Dave? That's what I want to know. Is there a...
We experimented with scent. There are some materials that have a natural scent to them. So we have some meeting spaces that have sisal on the wall to help with acoustics, but that has a scent to it. And you walk into those rooms and you smell that. It's part of the experience. We have some scent machines that we hid. A couple of us in the office, we kind of like move them around and we don't tell anybody about it. And we see if there's a positive reaction. We also have a researcher on staff that did a lot of research on scent. And so some scents trigger memory, but they also trigger emotion, and certain emotions work and while others don't. Lemon is a good one, for example, but a little bit too much, then everybody snaps back to grandma's dining table with the pledge smell, right? There's things like that. We tried what we thought was a good wood smell, but it actually smelled like cologne, and everybody triggered back to Abercrombie Fitch mall walking experiences.
Yes, very familiar.
The smell will do that. It's pretty powerful. And so we found a couple that are just enough that it becomes part of the experience. But, our researcher told us if people are too cognizant of it, they will start to feel manipulated. and that's not what you
Oh,
want.
interesting. That's
Yeah.
very interesting.
But we also have sound and we have music that changes during the day for different vibes, alternating with areas of bird sounds with background spa music. We found it the best combination.
Okay.
And we tried them all. We tried, wind and waves and rain
Hmm.
and all of those things. But the
You get
birds,
enough rain, don't you? You don't need that.
yeah,
I would think the
that's right.
birds. Yeah.
And we have a lot of biophilic touches, a lot of
Hmm.
plants and horticulture and those kinds of things that it actually kind of fits in really well.
And the nuance of those layers, then you can change those. So it doesn't have to just be
That's
the
right.
physical stuff. It can
Hmm.
be all the sensories then
Hmm.
that can be modified and flipped. All right, let's go back to this conversation around the rhythm of AI and how this might potentially change enclosure. The open work environment versus maybe a little bit more enclosed. So starting from
Right.
kind of this idea of creativity requiring collaboration. That's what we've been talking about for, I don't know, the last 5 years, probably since we came back from COVID, and said, why does collaboration require being physically present, right? What are some key call outs that you would maybe
Right.
make there?
So, and I think a lot of our clients have started to realize this. Everybody worked from home. They start to think about maybe we don't even need an office. And a lot haven't, depending on their workforce and their culture and what kind of business they are. But a lot have felt the dip in several things by working remote. One of those is their creativity and innovation. And there's research studies out there that show if you're a creative company, you rely on innovation to push your product and services forward, which a lot of companies rely on that, then you need your workforce to be collaborative. Because innovation, best kind of innovation, and the speed of that comes from collaboration. And the best kind of collaboration comes when you have trust in the team, amongst the team. And the best kind of trust and the fastest way to establish trust is to be in person. And so thus you see a lot of companies saying, okay, everybody back, or everybody back, partial or full, whatever it is, but they see the need for everybody coming back. And so if everybody's back and now we're asked to design great collaboration space and leverage the technology for collaboration and integration with in-person, with remote and all of these things that we're all going through right now. That's great. We're fine-tuning the collaboration space. That's what everybody's coming back for. The complaints surfacing now through surveys and other kinds of research that is being shared is the lack of good heads down focus
That's right.
space.
That's right.
And so when you look at, okay, everybody back, the easy solution is high density benching to accommodate the massing, especially when you're squeezed into real estate, that less real estate than you had before the pandemic. So that's a, obvious solution. However, it degrades that environment degrades the quality of the solo work that has to happen as well when you bring people back. We got good at the collaboration, whether it's open or closed spaces and leveraging the technology. But now the focus, I think, is going to start to shift back to really great individual workspace and the privacy that's needed for people to focus. We know that research shows when people are in this concentrated mindset, any distraction that takes them out of it, somebody sneezing, somebody walking by, any of those distractions that pulls you out of that concentrated mindset, it takes 20 minutes to half an hour to get back to where you were.
That's right.
That's a lot
Huge.
of disruptive time in your workforce, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so start to think about, okay, what does that start to change in the workplace environment? I don't think we're going to go back to all private offices like some of the tech companies did at one time, but certainly no privacy in your open office area is not a viable solution anymore. And so what's the level of privacy? I don't think we're going to go back to high panel cubes.
Please no. Let's not do that.
Ideally, you can look at solutions that become more organic and ergonomic.
Interesting.
And that used to be cost prohibitive before just because of how you manufacture for those kinds of shapes.
Right.
But now with 3D printing, maybe not so much. Maybe there's an easy way to get to some of those solutions. But if you start to categorize more enclosed private space as enclosed space, you could start to easily see the shift towards actually an office that's what used to be 75% open going 75% closed. And the little open pocket areas are now for collaboration rather than in a meeting space.
I
so
think
you
this
can
is
imagine
very interesting because even when you think about individual focus work and how much time I'm spending prompting my AI tool, so I'm voice texting into it, collaborating,
Yep.
not just on my virtual phone calls anymore. I'm collaborating verbally with my machine. I think is interesting. I think the risk here in this, though, is I don't want to be densified onto a side-by-side bench, right? That's like the last thing. On the other hand, I could see us getting into these siloed pods where I've got my headphones, my earbuds, my whatever, and I don't see anyone around me. I'm in my cocoon and I'm just talking to AI. And so I think the risk of where we could push this too far then could become, I talk to Claude instead of talking to Connie, right? Claude is the AI tool that I use. And so instead of talking to my colleagues and, hey, what do you think about this? React to this, play devil's advocate, whatever those interactions I typically would have, I'm now doing that with my machine. And I think that then starts to erode that trust that we were all just talking about, you know, and that we come back to be around each other, to look each other in the whites of each other's eyes and to build that camaraderie and that trust. We don't want to take it so far to be siloed. So I think that's an interesting dichotomy that we're going to see.
Yeah. And there's that pendulum that keeps swinging back and forth again. Right. And so, very quickly people's, peer or work buddy will be AI versus the person you sit next to or in the same pod. And to use that effectively, you want concentrative space. So that's as well. But how do you don't want your whole workforce to come in only to be secluded.
Yeah, that's right. Right.
To themselves. So designers will have to think about that and figure out a way to mitigate and counter that so that solo work is really good solo work in that environment, but you can easily accommodate quick collaboration or longer-term collaboration in certain kinds of spaces that will start to kind of pop up, get piloted, evolve as need to.
And Dave, I think content generation is happening so much more rapidly that the amount of time it takes me to do individual focus work task of 6 months ago even versus how long it takes me to do that individual content creation now. I think we're going to see more iterative approaches to our rhythm of our day where I'm 2 hours tasking, 15 minutes getting feedback, going back to the editing process, and that iteration is just going to speed up, I think, to your point about what is that little moment of interaction and then back to the focus work. I think it's going to become super important.
Yeah. We had a client tell us it's all about speed, speed, speed. So I want speed to a deal so I can get the space I need. I want speed in the design process. I want speed in the construction process because I need it yesterday. And then the design solution has to optimize speed for the workforce to deliver the products and services that we sell. And so it's all about maximizing and reducing the time it takes. And it's a challenge. We all face it, right? We all, in the delivery of the services and products we provide, everybody's asking us we want it faster.
We want it faster. Yeah.
And so the easy answer is, can't do it faster. It takes this long.
Right.
But you're going to quickly be like off the list.
Behind. That's right.
So the folks who figure out how to deliver it, take it on as a challenge, it's not going to be the way we've been doing it. It's going to be a new and different way. Has to be.
And I think it goes back to our conversation about it's all has to be iterative, right? And so you're going to take faster bets, quicker bets, and you're going to learn and you're going to change. So ideal state, we pick longer term partners that help us evolve along the way rather than a set it, forget it, mentality. So along the element of change, you talked about this a little bit earlier in our conversation. Obviously, there's occupancy data. We could have sensors and all the things. But what else tells a business it's time to do something bigger, broader for change? What happens right before they pick up the phone and call you to say, hey, I need to do something different? What are the signals that you hear from your clients in this space?
Well, there's a challenge of they want solutions where the users can just, we need this table over there. That's an easy one. Sure. Or we need to add more chairs to this collaboration event. That's simple. But if you start to change the space and it gets into something more physical, then there's liabilities involved. And so they don't want people doing that. And so, it shows up in help tickets, trouble tickets, space requests, to facilities and they hear what those hot points are. But sometimes you can censor the space and see if are these requests real? Is it? But there's all kinds of ways to trick even that kind of data. And we've heard stories of people kind of walking in so they can badge the security system and then go back home.
Maybe they get coffee if it's good coffee, and then they leave.
Or I had a friend who worked for a hospital and he said they censored their waiting areas, and one waiting area was super popular and always busy, and a lot of people going through, except when they walked by it, it was always empty. And they couldn't figure out what was going on until one day they were there, and it was a waiting area close by that for families, and the kids would run over and hop around from chair to chair,
Funny.
right, and throw off the sensor data.
All
so
those
it's
kindergartners. Yep.
Yeah, there's all kinds of things like that start to, how much can you trust? But which all of this points back to the need for agility. Whatever the need is for change, if the solution can shift and adapt to whatever that new need is, you're going to have a longer lasting, higher value facility and asset. So it's all pointing to that. It's really hard we've been providing for workspace allocations by categories, by buckets of people, right? We say, used to be hierarchical. If you're at this level, you get this space. Then it was more functional. If you're this type of worker, you get this space. We had an interesting experiment. Before we moved to our new office, we asked everybody, we have the same kind of workstation. We said, first we took out our conference table and created this work lounge, and everybody flocked to the work lounge. It wasn't the most ergonomic, and you didn't have all the equipment they needed, but they loved being in this new work environment.
It was your big boardroom? Is that what you're talking about? Your big boardroom.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Yep.
And we walked through the office and nobody's at their desk. Everybody's in the work lounge. And we didn't think that was a long-lasting solution. But why is nobody at their desk? Let's try another experiment. And so we created this list, said if you could choose these from this list, what you wanted at your desk. Left-hand return, right-hand return, height adjustability, or you don't care. Face the window, or you don't like people walking up behind you, face the other way. You want assigned or unassigned? You want to sit in a noisy zone where they play music and all the loud people sit, a medium zone where people are on calls all day, or a quiet zone, no talking, focus work. You get a call, you go to the phone. We were able to, surprisingly, we had enough space. So we were able to give everybody their first choice picks.
Oh, wow.
And you can imagine everybody picked different things from all of those choices. And we gave everybody their first choice, and then we assigned them the desk. We didn't expect to see this. No one was in the work lounge. Everybody was back at their desk.
Interesting.
How did that happen? What was that about?
Gave them what they needed.
This is the conversation we have sometimes about the difference between equity and equal. Right? Everybody having the same kind of workstation was equality, but everybody having that workspace in the environment that they needed to do their best work, that was equitable, and that made a difference. And so, sometimes, what was the cost of that? Almost nothing, right? Sometimes if you're in an existing office and you're seeking to solve new problems, it doesn't mean you have to gut everything and redo it. Sometimes it's just you try to understand what the problem is, and it could be a simple solution as new kind of seat assignments.
Super interesting. Just to think about the personality typologies there, the way people work. That's great. That's really good. So now that you've moved into your new space, I know you did a post-occupancy survey as well. What did you hear? What are the big takeaways for you in your new space?
Yeah, every category that we surveyed went up. Things got better. So we did a pre and a post. And the biggest kind of needle changers were people felt they were more creative, which is a huge plus for what we do. They felt engaged with the space and attached to the space, and they felt ownership in the space. And that all kind of fuels the kind of work we do, fuels the thinking, fuels the culture, engages people for a longer duration. So it was all very, very positive.
Very positive. That's right. Don't you wish every client was that way?
Yeah. We're going to do another survey though, in a year, just to see if anything changes. Yeah.
If the shine has worn off in any sort of way. Well, I think, obviously we have a lot of clients who don't do post-occupancy because they haven't budgeted for any change, right? And so even having that conversation on playing ahead, thinking about what agility looks like for your culture, for your people, so vitally, vitally important. So if you were to have a client, you experimented in your space, right? With your people.
Mm-hmm.
What's the smallest experiment you think a company could run before they commit to investing on significant change?
Yeah. Well, I think that one example
Mhm.
I talked about is seat allocation.
Right. Yep,
That's a
key
quick,
one.
easy one to try.
Mhm.
The other is kind of, I think, spatial enhancement with sound and scent. See if that makes a difference in certain areas. It changes the experience. But the main thing is to understand the problem you're trying to solve for.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you can spend a little money or a lot of money trying to solve the world.
Absolutely.
And
Well,
that's what doesn't happen a lot of times.
Mm-hmm. Yep, we chase the wrong thing.
Is we chase the wrong thing.
Yep, absolutely. All right. Well, this has been a great conversation. I always learn so much when we chat. We went through circularity and sustainability and agility and post-occupancy and AI. We covered a lot of ground. Anything you're like, I really wanted to chat about this thing before we close out? Any other closing thoughts?
I think the industry needs to really push on new approaches, new solutions, and it's in the way we do leases and the real estate's front end of things. We negotiate our lease allowance to be able to go to anything, not just permanent construction. Because the last thing our tenants want now is permanent construction to lock them into a solution for the long-term lease, right? So they sign the long-term deal, get a bigger pile of money, and then you have to spend it on something permanent.
Smart.
Used to be because then the asset has value in that construction, but you could argue the asset actually gets devalued because it's not usable in the future.
Yeah, too permanent.
And you got to pay the rising cost of deconstructing that and dealing with the waste from it.
Yes.
And so from the lease, how leases get put together to how buildings get designed to accommodate tenants and the amenities that are provided for those customers, all the stuff that go into space, the products, and then the space itself, how it's constructed. All of these things have to change. And the procurement strategies, right? One of the things that leads to permanence and waste is ownership. So you own everything. We just invested in this. Now they need to change it. We got to switch out all these collaboration spaces that, we invested in, but nobody's using. Well, we own it. Too bad.
Do something
we
with
sacrifice, we compromise the business because of that investment, or it goes into storage. Corporate America has huge warehouses full of
attic space
really good product.
And
there's only so many nonprofits you can donate to. So then it goes to landfill. But if you can reduce ownership and think of creative solutions to still provide things, rental, subscription, lease programs, and not everything, but in those areas where you're going to need that agility, it could start to decrease ownership, provide agility, and all of those who provide those services and products can start to think about a different way of making their money.
Well, in this episode of Rhythm of Change, I think you just called our industry out and said, come on, guys, what's up with our pace of change here and the way we do things, which I think is really, really great. Well, on behalf of Dave and myself, thank you for joining us all on another episode of the Tell Me More podcast. We've closed out today our 3-part series on Rhythm of Change, but join us next time as we move on to our next fun topic. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us on Tell Me More. For more insights and stories, subscribe on Apple Podcast and Spotify, and connect with us on social @Allsteel. See you next time.